This is Team One Thoughtseize. I'm Ahren.
And I'm Zach.
And this is episode 95, 2018 wrap-up. Man, it was quite a year.
Yes, it was, man. Crazy year for the show. And for the hosts, too.
Yeah. Yes, one in particular.
Oh, man! Bring it!
Housekeeping is going to be longer than normal today because I am going to shout out every single patron. It won't take long. Deck Builder affiliate link, still going strong. Store.decked, DECKED builder.com /T, the number one Thoughtseize. They've been exceptional, quite appreciative of their support of the show. So if you go check them out, use our fancy link, and that will let them know that we sent you. Normally we do new patron shoutouts. I am doing all patron shoutouts, so get ready. So thank you to all of our patrons: Alan, Aaron, Andrew, Ben, Brandon, Brian, Casey, Dan, Chris, Christian, Daniel, Dylan, Emma, Eric, Jamar, Jason, Jeffrey, Jerry, John, Julian, Kate, Pat, Rob, Mark, Matt, Peter, Paul, Phil, Richard, Rick, Stark, Shael, and Tom.
Yeah, for real. Shout out to all of them.
We love every single one of you. So,
I mean, this show would not be possible without them. They really are what make it go, and we're so thankful for the support.
So everyone that is active on the Discord, is a literal blessing. So really, having a place to go, we're just like throwing stuff out there and have good discussions, people supporting each other and helping each other is very gratifying. So thank you again to all of the people who do that. And if you are a patron and you're not on the Discord for some reason and you want to be, let me know what's going on, and I will get you a custom link sent over expeditiously and get you started.
Is expeditiously a word?
Yeah.
It is?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Quickly.
Oh. Alright. I'm going to file that away. I'll use that later.
Okay, good. We'll start doing word of the day. Yeah, I got a ton of them. So just as a broad view of kind of where the show landed at the end of this year versus last year. So I was not expecting this. I sort of ran the numbers, and this was as of last week, I think, or maybe even the week before. And it does not include SoundCloud, YouTube, and there's a couple of other. I think there's one other that I can't think of right now where the numbers, the download numbers, don't feed into the dashboard that I pulled this data from. But we ended up having 334% growth compared to last year. And when I originally looked at it, I was like, did the math wrong, which is fairly typical. And I was like, 33%. Like, that's pretty good. I'm super into that. Like, that's gonna pat us on the back. And then I was like, no, that number for this year is way bigger. I was like, can't be just 30%. And then like I did it out a couple times and I was like, no, that's wrong. So then I was like, tippity tap, right? Look it up on Google, and I was like, oh, you multiply it by 100. So yeah, so 334% is likely. I don't know. I was going to say it's something that I don't know if we'll be able to replicate next year, but who knows?
I think growth is exponential. So next year we're shooting for like 600% growth.
So, okay, got it. There's a point at which we're going to run out of Magic players.
That's true.
In that scenario, and we'd run out of road pretty quickly. You know, if there's 200 million.
Not with Arena, man. Not with Arena here.
That's true. That is true. A lot of people playing Arena, and we will touch on that later as well. I checked the old YouTube channel. We have 740 subscribers on the YouTube channel.
That's crazy.
I had no idea. Didn't even. It is not. I'm not like one of those hawks that just like looks all the time and is like obsessed with the number. It's just, I get like little notifications when I like log into YouTube. There's a little thing up in the corner that's like, oh, blah blah blah, subscribe, blah blah blah, subscribe. So like, we have those consistently. Like, there's people subscribing every day to the YouTube channel, which is great. It just in aggregate, I was surprised to see that number. I was like, wow, that's quite a few. And we will come back to that as well. We added a show to the lineup. You and Kat like doing the behind the scenes of the grinder life.
Yep.
The reception of which has been quite good. So, kudos to you guys. I mean, that's doing a second show for you and like a bazillionth show for her. She's all over the place now. She's worldwide, and she went full time this year. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, the famous Cat Light.
Crazy. The famous, yes, Twitter's Cat Light, Queen of the Spirit Squad, part-time member of Team One Thoughtseize. And next year, I have to assume that we're gonna probably end up adding another show. I think that's probably inevitable, because I'm sort of skipping ahead here. I think that the podcast, the main podcast as it is, serves our group of core listeners, and I think the focus of it is its strength. Asterisk. I do think that with Standard being good again for the first time, and we've talked about this on the show before, like literally the first time that Standard has been really good since the show started, just about. There's very small little complaints that I have about it, mainly involving Carnage Tyrant.
Really?
But
the complaint doesn't mainly involve Teferi?
No, I have played. So like, I get on Arena, I do like my daily quests. I don't like grind it super hard, but I bought some packs. I built a couple decks that I wanted to build goblins, obviously. And I have like a mono black control deck also, obviously. But I will tell you, I have seen, I don't know, 2 Teferis and 700 Carnage Tyrants.
Well, that's because everybody's wrong. They don't know. They don't know the truth yet.
And not like, oh, this person like top decked their one Carnage Tyrant. It's like Carnage Tyrant into Carnage Tyrant, and I'm just like, just stop. And there's no like damnation or something like that. So
no, black just can't answer it in Standard. It's heinous.
Yeah,
it's really annoying.
And so I'm just like, okie dokie, like unless I have like runner plague crafters, I basically have to go like Ritual of Soot into runner plague crafter and also not die at the same time, and that is difficult.
Yeah, it's bad news.
Yeah,
I'm with you though. I don't obviously I don't like Carnage Tyrant. I think that card's horrible. I don't think it should have been printed, but it's not like too good. It's just like a very unfun design.
Yeah, it fits in this like really awkward, and because somebody was like, "Oh, what about in modern?" I'm like, I don't care about it in modern. I've got 1,000 ways to answer it in modern. Like people are. It's like some of the big mana decks are playing it out of the side, which I think is totally fine. Like that is a very defensible choice.
Yeah, in modern, it's not. It's definitely not too good. It's just in standard where you don't have like if Supreme Verdict is legal in standard or something, then the card wouldn't be that good. It would just be fine. But right. That card isn't legal, and it's just like there's not a bunch of good ways to answer it. It just like kind of forces you. What it ends up doing is forcing every player to play to the board because you just like can't just be dead to a Carnage Tyrant attacking you.
Yeah. So that's that. But I mean the reality is like standard is good. We're gonna play standard. You are probably gonna play it more than I will, just in general, because that's going to be a lot of the Mythic Championship formats and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think there's a reason for us to not talk about it. I don't think that this show is the place to talk about it. So naturally, we can just do another show.
Yep, I agree with that. I don't want to change this show at all. Like, the show is just... It is for modern content. It's for the modern player. We talk about things relevant to modern. Give modern players what they want. And on that note, side note to anyone listening, if you're playing modern and listening to this and want to hear something on the show you're not hearing, feel free to hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on email, any place you can contact the show.
Yep.
Facebook even. Wherever you can contact us and tell us, the things you want to hear, we'll be happy to add them. But with Magic making this huge push for Arena and SCG moving back towards playing more standard events and just it feels like 2019 is going to be a year where there's going to be a lot of focus on standard, and rightfully so. It's good finally for the first time in forever. You just mentioned that. So we'll probably going to need to find a way to get some modern or standard, maybe more arena focused content out there. But for those people that like this show and listen to it, we're not gonna change this. This is still going to be here for you. We're still going to talk modern. We'll hopefully start getting some new modern players in from people that joined from Arena, and we'll be here for those players too. So,
yeah, I mean, and the other thing, and I have said this before, and I think this is, not just a thing that I am saying because it sort of serves me to say it, even though it kind of does. Good standard makes good modern. Like, every single standard deck from a period of time where standard was good and that deck was also a dominant archetype is a modern deck. So, like, if you look at Innistrad block and, like, those cards, the cards that were in those, like, black base control decks, all those cards, like original Ravnica was great. The standard decks from there became decks that exist now in modern. Like, so this is probably the first, not the first set. I think there are definitely some cards in like Ixalan and like one or two cards in like Shadows and stuff like that. But this is in my head the sort of the beginning of the, like, I would hang on to these cards in a way that I would not have necessarily hung on to cards from previous blocks.
Well, so, like, I agree with you that I would hang on to these, but I don't agree with your point that, like, good standard makes good modern decks. Because usually what makes good standard is, or good modern decks are horrible standards. Like, Affinity standard, energy decks, like, there is some amount of, it's not popular, but, like, Through the Breach, I'm forgetting that thing, Aetherworks Marvel, just, like, Cast Emrakul, like, just broken decks. Blue-White Stoneblade, the Stoneforge, Jace decks from Standard, like, those are all modern decks, and they're, like, well, that one would be a modern deck if Stoneforge is legal, but the point is, like, some horrible...
It's too good for modern, Zach.
It's not too good for modern.
Stoneforge Mystic, it's too strong.
We can't... All right. We're gonna get heated over this, so I'm gonna let that go. And I promise I will come back and yell at you about this at some point.
That's fine.
Aggressively. I will be very aggressive on this. But
for the record, I obviously do not believe that Stoneforge Mystic, a glorified Steel Shaper's gift that dies to every single removal spell in the format, is not too good for Modern. Like, it's the card is basically like an mildly irritating, almost blank piece of paper in like real world Modern.
That's correct. Okay, so now we agree. I'm
not.
Oh my god!
I'm mind blown.
I'm mind blown that you agree with me on that. Now I don't even know what to say. I just lost all the fire.
Well, it's just like I said. It's. I think it would be. I think it would basically be a non-card. I think it would be like Sword of the Meek.
See, I don't agree with that. I think it's better than those because of the like saves you mana thing, like on a Batter Skull essentially.
Sure.
Because Batter Skull exists, I think the card is playable, but because you don't have Jitte, I think the card is not that good. Like I do strongly believe that. Where Batter Skull like can be good and annoying, but it's slow and easy to deal with, and like there's just tools out there now that beat it. But regardless, we are way off topic. We were talking about how this standard is good for Modern and how it's good for Arena, and I agree with you on that because what good standard does is it gets more players, right? It like gets people who want to play the game, and when they're playing the game and they're having fun, they get to see the game for like the good things that it has going on. Which this game has a lot of them, and you're seeing that with Arena. People are playing Arena in record numbers, like way, 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 way more than Magic Online. And people are enjoying it because Arena's fun and the game is fun. And that's going to lead to people who want to play Modern. And they're going to see the other awesome things this game has to offer, like, like competitive events and cons where you can see your friends, like the Magic Fest they have scheduled. And, we just wanted to say in 2019 we plan to, try and give you guys more content to, kind of go along with that hype and that craze and that movement that's going to happen. So we'll be doing that. But what else do we have planned for 2019, Ahren?
Oh, so more Twitch. Like that's a huge thing. Is we have not created a sort of like comprehensive plan in terms of like how to sort of attack that whole thing. Right, like both of us now are streaming, but we don't really have a set schedule. We don't have like other than just like play Modern or play whatever. Like we don't really have a thing, right? So like it needs structure, and that's the biggest thing that I want to do with Twitch in this coming year is establish that structure. And then, figure out what works and what doesn't, and we can tweak it. But just sort of having something in place where people can go, oh, it's Thursday at 8 p.m. So like every other Thursday, I'll be playing this, and then on alternate whatever days, you'll be playing something else. Whatever it may be. And that's the big thing, I think, because it's consistency, right? Like, it's the same thing as as any content thing. Like, people think there's a big secret to it, but like it's really just putting out content consistently is the biggest like predictor of success.
Yep.
So we just need to do that.
Yeah, we're gonna try and do that.
I do want to do more video content, and I think a lot of that is going to be, like gameplay videos, and because we had done gameplay videos like a long time ago, and like I think the last one that was uploaded, there's two of them. There's an Eldrazi Taxes League and a Bushwhacker Zoo League when Battle for Zendikar came out, and they were very popular. Like those are still the most viewed videos on the channel, like in the history of the channel. So, clearly there is demand for that, and I think that is worth pursuing. The platform upon which that is going to be, I don't know, because like YouTube is just not ringing my bell. They're just algorithms all over the place. Like there's zero money. Like until you're 6 digits views per video, you might as well just be like there's no financial incentive other than just sort of it being out there and a sort of convenient way to consume that. So I'm knocking that around. Twitch is sort of starting to make forays into that area. Like they added you can upload your own videos now without having to have streamed them first. So like there's still stream replays. Like your VODs are still there, but you can also now just upload videos for people to watch. So that could be a thing. I don't know yet. I haven't really looked into it. So and also like people have feedback about that. Like where do you want to see stuff? It's just my view on that is similar to the podcast. Like we went from, being on, 4 or 5, sort of feed aggregators and stuff like that to, like people would come on and be like, oh, I use blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, we'll put it up there. Boom, done. No problem. People started to use SoundCloud for podcasts. I was like, okay, well, we'll put it up there too. And so now it's like all over the place. And if and when like the video world becomes that, people are like, oh, I watch it on World Star Hip Hop. I'll be like, all right, great. I'll upload them World Star. I don't care. Like, I'll put them wherever. So definitely get at either of us and just be like, hey, I really like to watch videos on blah, whatever. Snapchat probably would be difficult though, because you'd have to watch it like 30-second clips and like a whole league stretched out over that.
Yeah, we're not doing Snapchat. No Snapchat.
10-second clips is going to be tedious, I think. So that request will likely not be fulfilled, but other reasonable video platform requests will all be considered. More events. I have a tentative plan right now for LA, Dallas, either Milwaukee or Minneapolis, probably Minneapolis. And I'll be in New Jersey in a couple of weeks, at the end of January. And I want to be better about sort of like planning that stuff in advance. Not only because it makes my life easier, because I don't like last minute stuff, just like gives me agita. So planning that stuff in advance, being able to sort of like set up events and do stuff there, and have possibly some opportunities to do organized stuff at the shows. Who knows what could happen. But all that stuff requires planning. So planning it shall be. And I probably will stick to local, like drivable SCGs, and mainly fly for like Magic Fests, I think is my loose plan. Because as we learned, the grinder's life is not for me.
It's fair.
It's not my cup of tea. Godspeed to everybody that is doing it. And I think based on the stuff that I've seen out of SCG, I think for most people, if you were like, I'm going to like min cash grind until I sort of hit, a good event or something like that, I think SCG is probably the place where you're more likely to be able to do that successfully. Just because of their promotion, their sort of like personality building, the structure of it, I think is more conducive for most people than like trying to go to like 15 Magic Fest a year and like grind GPs.
Well, so
Magic Fest, whatever.
I mean, I have some stuff on that because for me, I don't have my 2019 plans really set at all yet. I'm still working on, trying to figure out what exactly I'm doing, and there's a huge part of it that's like, well, they haven't announced exactly how Magic Fest even work yet, so I know some things, but I'm not sure how worth it is for me to go to them even, so we'll see how that goes. But SEG is also making a big push this year to, have the Players' Championship come back and provide more money, and there's a lot of incentive to go to SEGs. And the other thing that's nice about SEGs is they're all, local to me in the U.S. If you're from Canada or, outside of the continental U.S., you kind of just have to do Magic Fest. That's just the way it goes now. But, for me, SEGs are pretty comparable. They're a great tournament environment, in my opinion. I mean, I love playing them just because they're fun to play. They're a good place to play Modern, where you don't usually get to play that as much. And so I'll be going to both for the time being. I need some number of pro points to hit gold, and I'm actually pretty close to it. So I'm gonna try and hit gold before pro points go away in June. So I got 6 months of heavy grinding on Grand Prix, if I can, and possible playing SEGs too. So we'll see exactly what happens, but as of right now, working on going to a bunch of stuff. So I'll definitely be at events. Not sure what that will be yet, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did say that whatever like level you have when the changes happen, I think you're going to get those benefits for a minimum of a year. I want to say.
Yeah,
so if you hit gold, you'll have like a year of gold level benefits,
which would be awesome. I mean, that's flights to a bunch of pro tours, a bunch of Mythic championships, qualifications for a bunch of Mythic championships, a bunch of incentive to do these things. The problem is that I wasn't going to Grand Prix until Grand Prix Pittsburgh last year, which happened like September or something. I want to say it's later in the year. I think it was like September, maybe August, something like that. And that was like my first pro points for the year. So I have to get gold in essentially like 9 months, which everyone else gets a year to do, which is, not super easy, obviously. So I think my PT finish is going to let me, have a shot at that, but we'll see. There's a lot that kind of has to go right for that to even be in the conversation. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's obviously I'll be going to events. That's going to happen. There will be events, and along with those events, there will definitely be Mythic Championships. I am 100% locked to play in Cleveland on, it's like February 20th, and I'm qualified for London in April. I'm not 100% sure I'll go. It depends on a lot of things that happen, because I have a silver qualification, so I can go to the event, but I have to pay my own way to it. I have to pay for my flight and stuff, which is, overseas flight could be expensive. We'll see, and it depends on how much value there is to it, and I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I would like to go, so I'm planning on going to both of those. And I guess I'll keep you guys updated as the year goes on, but for now, one step at a time. I will definitely be in SCG Columbus beginning of January, and I will definitely be at Magic Fest Cleveland in the end of February. And there'll be some other SCGs along the way and some other Grand Prix, and we'll see exactly where everything ends up.
There you go. Let's see. There's that. What else? What other? We haven't really talked about even like what other. If you could do one type of thing, whatever that thing is, for content for the Team One Thoughtseize umbrella. What do you want to do next year?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were talking to the other person who just hopped on the cast out of nowhere. No, I'm just kidding. There's no one there. I wasn't sure if that was like a...
That you know of.
No, well, okay, I guess that's fair. I wasn't sure if that was like a question to the audience. No, so I mean, for me, I will be focusing on streaming. I just got all the equipment for it. I've done maybe 3 streams at this point. One of them was like an hour long, not really a stream at all. And I'm trying to figure it out, trying to learn the process. So I'll be working on that and getting some technical details down. So, baby steps. There's a lot of learning and playing Magic too for me right now. So, kind of got a lot on my plate, and we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah. Yep. I would really like to find some place to make our custom sleeves. That would make me really happy.
Dude, you're telling me I need I need sleeves. I want to stop buying Dragon Shields every weekend.
Yeah, it's just not. And I talked to everybody pretty much. The only people I haven't talked to yet are KMC and miscellaneous vendors in China. And I don't know if I really want to go that route.
Well, let's stay away from the China thing. That could be difficult and probably expensive.
Yeah, who knows? Well, no, it's cheap. Like we could go on, like I could go on Alibaba right now, and we could have 100,000 like printed card sleeves here in 3 weeks. I just don't know. Like it's a toss up of like what would actually come in, because I don't know. I've never seen them. So that's the sort of the stumbling block there is the people, like Dragon Shield doesn't do it yet. They may at some point in the future. BCW is not doing it, or they're not doing it currently. They might do it in the future. Who knows? Actually, I haven't talked to Ultimate Card. That'd be interesting. All right, but anyway, so that is something that we are looking into, as well. And I was like high on my list. I would really like to get that done. And yeah, and I think, like I said, I think there's going to be some standard-y, arena-y focused something. And who knows, like that could just be videos. That could, it might not necessarily be a show, in the same way that this is a show, or, Tournament Wild and the Cowl is a show. It may just be like a weekly sort of like video digest. I don't know.
Yep.
See what happens.
We'll figure that out when that happens. But let's get to what the people actually came here for.
Yeah. Some sweet brews, bruh.
I don't know if people came for that, but in my mind, they come for the theory and the content. But I'm sure people actually do come for some brews.
So, dude, people come for the brews.
The brews are sweet.
Well, they're not always sweet, but
that's true. Some of them are pretty bad.
Some of them are super bad.
Like Esper Rally, for instance. Sweet, but bad.
Well, that I would like to remind you was you.
Yeah, that was me. I agree.
By the way.
That was me.
I had no involvement.
In fairness, that one was mostly just bad. But it was sweet.
Oh, sure. I mean, like I said, it's about the process.
It's fair.
Right? Like they're not all winners, but it's about the process. Speaking of the process, I was playing with Blood Operative in my mono black control deck on Arena, and I was like, dang, this card is good, because it is good. It's a very interesting. I think it's a well designed card. It's very interesting. It has a lot of stuff that I like. It has a good ETB. Like ETB, exile a card from a graveyard is great. 3-powered lifelink is great. Comes back to your hand for 3 life every time you surveil. So like there's some built-in cost to that. But because of my current obsession and endless defense, I will die on this hill. Discovery Dispersal is a great card. It is modern playable.
Whoa.
It is
no, you could
great.
just stop at great card and then we'll parenthesis in standard there.
Like I said, I'm ready to go to the mat on this one, but now is not the time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put together something blue, black, X. And then I was like, oh, I'll put it in Grixis control. So I put a pile together and it was terrible and it just didn't work. And then I happened to be scrolling through sort of magic Twitter, and Corey Burkhart popped up and he was like, oh, somebody was like, oh, said something about it. Oh, no, he responded to, because I counter-squalled a Karn Liberated and took a screenshot of it, and it was fantastic. And
that actually does sound fantastic. I'm here for that content.
It was such a nice feeling. I was just like, boop, here you go, and take 2. Shock ya. They were shocked, literally and figuratively. So Curry was like, hey, he's like, this is my life all the time. Like, come on in, basically. And I was like, oh man, I should message him. So I messaged him. I was like, hey man, do you have like a 75 or 60 that you're working off of? So he sent me the list. Super cool. So Corey, thank you very much. So then I took his deck and, depending on your perspective, ruined it. But I didn't make a huge number of changes. The Blood Operatives didn't make the cut. They were just not good enough.
Okay.
I took out the Thought Scours because I hate Thought Scour. And I took 4 Thought Scours out, put 4 Discovery Dispersal in.
Look.
Amazing.
Here's what I'm going to say about this. Is that I absolutely hate Thought Scour. If you've ever seen me talk about Thought Scour, you know how much I hate that card.
I know.
So
it's a bad card.
I'm with you on that. I hate Thought Scour. I will say, though, that Corey Burkhart is on my team for this Pro Tour series, right? And at the last Pro Tour, he mentioned Thought Scour. We were talking about modern decks, and he mentioned how Thought Scour was Dark Ritual in the format that draws a card. And I mentioned how Thought Scour was a card that belongs in the trash can. And there was some heat and contention there. So don't let him hear you talking about Thought Scour like this. Keep that on the DL. Keep it on the DL.
I did. I talked to him about it yesterday.
Oh no! You told him you didn't like Thought Scour?
Yeah, I was like,
he's gonna be offended now, man. He's gonna be upset.
I told him, I was like, I know people really like Thought Scour. It's just always disappointed me. So I'm using Discovery Dispersal instead. He read the message, no response. But one of the things that we talked about was Kalidas, because I had just sort of randomly put one in the main deck, and it was just bonkers. Like, it was so good, and he had said that he had played it in the past and was happy with it, and then hadn't played with it recently. And I was like, well, I'm playing with it right now, and it is off the charts amazing. So he was like, oh, that's really good to hear. That was before the Thought Scour thing. And so I took his list and I trimmed like a Spell Snare, because Spell Snare's stock right now with like its main targets, just like the stuff that it would hit everything in, is just everything's using like Ether Vial and Cavern of Souls. So it's not what it was. So I shaved a Spell Snare and one other thing from the main deck, and I added 2 Kalitas to the main. So it's 4 Snap, 2 Kalitas, 2 Tassiger, Engineered Explosives, 2 Fatal Push, 4 Lightning Bolt, 1 Spell Snare, 1 Counter Squall, 4 Discovery Dispersal, 2 Logic Knot, 2 Surfshar's Canto, 1 Terminate, 1 Dismember, 4 Kolaghan's Command, 4 Cryptic Command, and 25 lands. And that has been fantastic. Like, Kalitas is a house. The rest of it is been quite good. So if you're, I'm not saying play Discovery Dispersal over Thoughtscour if you're a purist, but if you're ready to come to Flavortown, Discovery Dispersal is strong. And being able to cast Dispersal, I will say, like, the backside of Dispersal saved me on a number of occasions, because the backside of Discovery Dispersal saved me on a number of occasions because it bounces the highest converted mana cost thing back to their hand and then makes them discard. So in that sort of like Carnage Tyrant scenario, or I had it bounce like an Ulamog because it's instant speed. So like they got to double Stone Rain me, which was a bummer, but then their Ulamog went away.
Okay. I mean, that's fair.
So like it's not nothing. And
look, my gripe with Discovery Dispersal is not that it is not modern power level, because I think that it is a very powerful card and doing powerful things. My problem is there are better cards in blue when you're playing blue. So it's like, I just don't like casting 2 mana cantrips when you can play 1 mana cantrips that do a lot of the same thing. And same kind of goes with red, when you could be playing like Faithless Looting. But, in a deck like Living End, for example, like that card's insane, where it like lets you still play Cascade cards and be like a cantripping spell. Like, yeah, like it's awesome. There are spots in Modern where it is awesome, but I think you really got to be careful where you pick those, because 2 mana cantrip, like spending 2 mana to not affect the board in Modern is dubious unless you have a plan, you know?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I mean it's still Dark Ritual, or it's still whatever, Desperate Ritual. But yeah. So anyways, so that's what I have been playing most recently. I have, as always, like a bazillion, like I went on my tear of like updating extended decks. Had some misses, but like had some hits too. I think that black red Pox deck, or like ended up without Poxless Pox. I went back to the original Pox deck and saw that the thing that was missing from the newer decks is it had the mana denial, but it didn't have the fast mana that the old ones had, where it was like, I'm blowing up your lands, also I'm cheating on mana. So I wanted to sort of like bring that aspect back into the deck, and ended up with a build that I'm pretty happy with. It doesn't have any small poxes in it. It has Fulminator Mages instead, but you're doing the same thing. Plus it lets me play Liliana and Chandra Torch of Defiance and Angrath all in the same deck, and that card is so good. Like, I'm all in on Hijack right now. But just like his +1 in combination with Liliana is just insane. So highly recommend Angrath. I think he will probably also, after Ravnica Allegiance comes out, my guess is that because he's a Rakdos colored Planeswalker, he probably will see some more play. His cost has already been going up a little bit, so that perhaps something to look at. I updated Baron Loam. So this was one of the early Life from the Loam decks. It was in extended with the onslaught cycle lands that cycled for a single mana. And so those with Life Alone are great. The cycling deserts from Amonkhet are obviously not as good. But I was able to get it to a point where like that card draw engine was workable. Obviously the old one didn't have any planeswalkers. So the new one is Tarmogoyf's Kitchen Finks, Engineer Explosives, Slaughter Pact Dark Blast, Raven's Crime, obviously great with Life from the Loam. Thoughtseize Assassin's Trophy was a huge power boost for this deck. I don't even think the original had Abrupt Decay because it was 2009, I want to say. So I don't think they had Abrupt Decay, but they may have had Pernicious Deed. So I think that's probably why they had one, not the other. Bitter Blossom, Life from the Loam, Nissa Voice of Zendikar, a card that gets overlooked so much. It's so good. Like in creature decks, it makes the plant token, gives everything counters, works great with Kitchen Finks. Like it'll reset the persistent Kitchen Finks. It's just a good all around card. It does not see enough play. I also put in a main deck Nissa Vital Force, and that card also exceptional. And a Worm Harvest, the classic, the most classic of Loam deck finishers. And let me tell you, and 26 lands. And let me tell you, if you want to grind, if you want to play an 18 turn game or more, I've got a deck for you. And it's killing people with worm tokens. Oh, God, what else? Oh, Bug Death Shadow. Worked on that earlier in the year. Got it to a place where it's playable. I actually have it sleeved up. That was the other thing is I'm going to start playing more paper events at my LGS because I haven't been there. Just like so much other stuff going on. And one of the things that was like tripping me up is I would be working on a deck like on my phone or playing it online and didn't have it sleeved up. So it would be like Thursday as I'm driving home from work. Thursday is Modern Night. And I'd be like, all right, I want to go play tonight. And then I would have nothing sleeved up. And then I would end up doing something else. I've solved that problem. I have 2 decks. I have Bug Death Shadow and then just actual like tiered burn. Like I'm using Ari's burn list from his last SCG article. It's quite good. I mean, I've Ball Lightnings too. I mean, obviously, because that card exists, so I have to play it. But they are like they're in the back. I have the real deck in the front, and then like if I'm feeling saucy, I'll play the Ball Lightning version.
Dude, I actually agree with that strategy a lot though. For your like escapades of playing paper events, for anybody listening that has access to paper events near them that they like to play, but it's not super serious. Like an LGS, for example. Like I have this too, where I play an LGS in paper. There's one near me, and I will always have a modern deck that's just ready to go that I don't touch. That's just sitting in my bag. Anytime I need it, anytime someone needs to borrow it, it's just there. I have it, but I don't edit it. I don't change it. For me, that most of this year was Tron. I just had a Tron deck just in my car. Someone needed a Tron deck, boom, I have it. Then I got replaced by Humans, where I just kind of set a Humans deck in there for a little bit. If you need a Humans deck, boom, you got it. But if I was ever running late and I wanted to go play, but like I didn't have the whatever deck I was working on trying to tune ready to go, and I don't feel like going home and rushing trying to find the last cards, all that. You can just drive up to the store and you just have the deck ready to go. So I would strongly recommend that for anybody with the means. Even if it's not like an expensive deck, like even if it's like, you said burn, like fetchless burn where you're just playing mountains and it's just bolts, lava spikes, like just having something so you can go see your friends and go to the store and, chat around and have a good time. Just always smart to have that extra thing prepared, ready to go.
Yeah. And they finally they printed new art for lava spike. So like I can play burn now. 'Cause I like dead serious. One of the things that was keeping me from playing Burn is I hated the old lava spike art. I just couldn't stand it.
What, really? What was wrong with lava spike?
I don't know. There's just something about it. It looked like the way that when I looked at it, it looks like the spike is coming towards the guy, and there's like something about the way his hand is positioned. Everybody's got their things. I probably more than most. Like I will absolutely cop to that. And one of them is if the art on the card is something that I dislike, like aesthetically dislike, I probably will not play it.
That's fair.
Well, no, it's insane. It's not. Well, it's not a defense. It's not a defensible position. But
well, no, it's okay. So this position on the art thing is insane. Although I will play cards based on art, so I don't totally disagree. But like I understand your sentiment here. Like you have a thing and you abide by the thing, and it's just the thing exists and that's what it is. Like I get that. That's something that happens with me in Magic cards. I don't agree with Lava Spike in particular, but I think Lava Spike. I think the other one looks cool, but that's just.
But the new Lava Spike art is lit.
Well, I don't disagree. The new Lava Spike art.
That's a thing people say, right?
Sure, we'll go with that. Yeah.
I've a deep affection for the new Lava Spike art. Plus, it also has the player or planeswalker reminder text, which I guarantee I would forget 9 times out of 10 that like you can Lava Spike a planeswalker.
Sure.
So, it's also right. It's little column A, little column B.
It's fair.
But I do really like the new art. So yeah, so next up, I have a updated Miracle Grow deck. I went back and I realized that the original Miracle Grow deck was just a Merfolk deck that also had Quirion Dryad in it. But now we have a Merfolk that is a Quirion Dryad, so like that was pretty straightforward. Sort of like get that back on track. I was like, oh great, we don't have to like play this off tribe weird thing, and we can use Spreading Seas, like actually use Spreading Seas to its full advantage, because none of those creatures except for Mana Gorge or Hydra have trample, so they need some sort of evasion, or they just and then Temur Experimental Frenzy is like in pre-alpha. Like I don't think I've even put the list on the Discord yet. Like that's how rough it is. So but I think Experimental Frenzy as a better future sight for 4 mana is like insane, and I think that card has so much potential and so many places where like it could go, and that was just the first. Well,
look, I'm just gonna say this. I saw it in Elves and it was terrifying.
Yeah,
there's an Elf deck that's playing it now, and it is scary. It's like Glimpse of Nature all by itself.
Wow.
It really is. There is some messed up stuff you can do in Elves with it. So I think that's a good shell to kind of build from, because the fact that like all of your creatures make mana and they all have haste when you cast them, so like casting more gets you more mana with I forgot the Heritage Druid, I think.
Oh sure, yeah.
Like the Heritage Druid engine with Experimental Frenzy is terrifying, and it actually works. Well, it doesn't really work with it, but Coco like kind of is sweet with it, where it just like gets to get to Coco and keep going. I don't know.
Well, you're definitely gonna, like, if you cast a Coco off the top, those cards don't go into your, they don't get stranded in your hand.
Yeah, it's like a card advantage spell that still works with Experimental Frenzy. Whereas like if you cast like a Divination, you're drawing 2 cards you can't use, which is like one of its issues in Standard, right? Is like the best card advantage spell with it is the risk factor that doesn't really work. You just draw cards and they don't do anything. But it's sweet with Elves, and it's particularly cool with ways to use mana that aren't casting spells when you get stuck, like when you hit 2 lands in a row or whatever. And Elves does have that in Azuri, so
sure, yep.
Like I don't think the current lists out there are perfect. They're not really putting up big finishes, but I do think something is there and it's worth exploring.
Yep.
So it's a good place to look, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing is there's one of the Baron Loam list. The old one had Persecute in the side, and like Persecute is definitely one of my pet cards. It's a 4 mana discard spell, and you pick a color when you cast it, and your opponent reveals their hand and discards all the cards of that color. So like as a sideboard card against certain decks, it's just like 4 mana discard 4, 4 mana discard 5, like just like devastate somebody's hand. So that was fun to be able to get to dust that one off, because it's an oldie but goodie. It got reprinted in 9th edition, I believe. It was a Urza block card.
Yes.
Just neat. All right, so there's the 30 decks that I'm working on. What are you working on?
Well, I think I've touched on this in maybe the last couple episodes, but I picked up Amulet recently. I've been working on learning it, which, for me is just a lot of reps, and I've been playing a lot of Amulet Titan on MTGO. Just trying to... That Amulet Titan is a very strange deck, I guess. It doesn't play like other decks at all, and there's a lot of complex lines, a lot that kind of goes into it, so I don't think I'd be comfortable bringing it to an event unless I played a ton of games with it. I want to get I want to play something in the league of 50 leagues, so 200 plus games with the deck at least before I'm comfortable bringing it to an event, just to be sure, because there's a lot of lines and they all really matter, because any mistake, single mistakes in that deck can cost you actual turns. Like, they can set you turns back, where it's I could have had 6 mana this turn, but I played the wrong land last turn, so this turn I only have 5 mana, and that means I don't get to cast my Primeval Titan, so I have to wait another turn before I can cast it, and it's just any of those mistakes can cost you matches. You never tell, right? Like, the margins are pretty thin in Modern, so... I want to feel comfortable with it. So I've been jamming that. I've been working with some of my friends. They've also been learning it, and we've kind of been group thinking it. And I think I'm getting a lot better with it. I feel pretty comfortable playing the deck at this point, but we'll see. There's still work to do. But it's something I'm strongly considering playing in Columbus when I go in a week. And then the other thing is I'm getting back to learning Death Shadow again. I played Death Shadow a lot when it was super popular, a year ago? I don't even remember. When was Death Shadow super popular? When it first broke out? 18 months ago, something like that?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I was going to say probably a year and a half or so.
Yeah, so I played it a bunch back then, but have not picked it up since, and didn't really like the play, how it played, I guess. I don't know. I just liked other decks more. And so I'm getting back to playing with it and learning it again, and I think it's, well positioned again, and it is a deck I enjoy playing. So, getting back to that, I haven't really started with that, but it's one I want in my arsenal for sure. So, just, working on Amulet Titan, Death Shadow, and then I've kind of had a Thing in the Ice, Jeskai control. It's like a Miracle Grow deck, actually, where it's just like a Jeskai control deck that's just playing Thing in the Ice and ways to flip your thing, so you just have a big 7/8 and you can just aggro them out.
Yep.
So I've been working on that as well, and that deck is actually showing quite a bit of promise. It's the other deck I'm strongly considering for Columbus when I go in a week. Yep. So I'm between Amulet Titan and that, and Death Shadow is just something I'm just adding to the back burner right now. I'm gonna let that simmer for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody could disagree that Thing in the Ice is probably one of the more powerful things that you could be doing right now. So I'm in on Thing in the Ice.
Yeah, I think Thing in the Ice is I think it was really poorly positioned for a while there while Fatal Push was really popular. But the card itself is a nuts card in Modern, where it's the effect is really powerful, but you really have to commit to enabling it. You can't just throw it in any blue deck. You need to be playing the cantrips that allow you to flip the card.
Right.
And when Fatal Push and Reflector Mage were the most played removal spells in the format, it was just terrible. Getting 3 counters off of it and getting a Fatal Push just sets you so far back, and getting a Reflector Mage feels horrible. It's really bad against the card Reflector Mage, by the way. I've had this... I've gone through these battles quite a bit where you They reflector mage your thing in the ice. You fight for a little bit, get it back down, flip the thing in the ice, bounce the reflector mage. They replay the reflector mage, bounce your thing in the ice. Yeah, these things happen. It just it just keeps going. It's just the bounce battle, but yeah, I mean that
sounds unpleasant.
Yeah, but the card is sweet, so and it's powerful. So they're definitely being able to recognize the spot where you want it is important, because I think it's, you know, on that short list of cards for like very, very powerful 2-drops in Modern, which is something you're always looking for, right? It's like powerful 2-drop creatures.
Yep. Absolutely. So there was a Tempest in a Teapot, which I sort of engaged in and sort of didn't. Like, I didn't jump in on any of the multiple threads about this. Oh no, nope. Wait. Metagame update first. Skipped ahead. Oh man, I just don't. Okay, so here's the metagame update as it's written in our script. Says KCI is likely still the best deck. It's just hard to play and underrepresented.
It just won the Invitational like a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
I don't know. I remain unconvinced.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it just won the Invitational. It's been winning events left and right.
All right.
That's why it's the best deck. You play against it online. The deck is heinous. I still hate this deck with a passion.
Sure, it's a bad deck.
Well, it's not bad. It's incredibly powerful, but it is a horrible deck for play patterns. It is one I would like to see go ASAP if possible, but
yeah,
we don't know when the next serious Modern banning is. Like, obviously they have these we could Modern ban anytime situations where they have like 2 ban lists per set release, but it seems like they only really ban them before Modern Pro Tours, and the next Pro Tour was supposed to be Modern, but they announced it as Standard, so we don't know when the next Modern Pro Tour is, or if there will be one, because they're Mythic Championships now, so we don't know when the next banning is, so I would assume we'll see something change at that point, but
yeah,
who knows?
Whenever that is. Stay tuned.
Yeah, who knows? But for now, I do think KCI is one of the best decks. Or I think it is just the best deck in terms of win percentage, in terms of power level. I think it's just on a different level than other cards. The fact that it gets to play a Mox is just ridiculous. But past that, Bant Spirits and Izzet Phoenix are now the most played decks. I differentiate between best and played, but these 2 decks are the decks that see the most play, and they're both very good. Like, I'm not taking away from Bant Spirits and Izzet Phoenix saying KCI I think is the best deck. Like, I think Bant Spirits and Izzet Phoenix both win a ton, and they're both very good. And they're just fair, more fun decks, I guess. That play, a more traditional style of Magic, so people just absolutely love them. And, that is represented in the fact that they are the most played. So you're going to see a lot of those if you go to a tournament, in the next month-ish. And then there's been a very large uptick of Death Shadow, Tron, and Amulet Titan. So you're going to see a lot of those going around as well. They're all very good right now. I wouldn't say that they are, necessarily in the top tier, but they're all, quite good. I would not be shocked to see any of them win a tournament. Like, if you just told me Tron won, or Amulet Titan won, or Death Shadow won, then I wouldn't be shocked. I think they're all good. And Humans is definitely still there. It's still in the played category with Bant Spirits and Izzet Phoenix, but it is seeing a pretty big downswing from where it was, 3-4 months ago. I think a lot has to do with the bad KCI matchup and just Bant Spirits overtaking it. Bant Spirit, I think, one of the biggest things here is Bant Spirits is just better against KCI. It gets to use better sideboard cards, and I think that's what we're seeing. So that's where we are right now. The rest of Modern hasn't changed. There's still just going to be all the decks you've always seen. They're always there, but that's what the top is looking like currently. So,
all right. So Paolo wrote an article on Center Fireball where he solicited community responses to the question, "What is?" All right, let me see how he phrased it. Sorry. So he wrote an article, a deck difficulty. So I don't know how the question was phrased. But so he took 18 decks and was like, how hard is this deck to play on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the easiest, 5 being the hardest. And so there was the sort of TLDR was Burn, Tron, Scapeshift were basically characterized as brainless decks. Hollow One, Humans, Spirits, like Blue Red Phoenix, Jund, Abzan, and Affinity were kind of like medium. And then Dredge, Jeskai, Blue White, Hardened Scales, Storm, and Grixis Death Shadow were like moderately difficult. And then the big brain decks, Lantern, Amulet, and KCI. And that was sort of the way it was interpreted. Obviously, like, because this was somewhat based on, or this list was based on like the community feedback. At the end of the day, I think this is a list of like people's prejudices about decks.
There is some
rather than like an objective sort of rating of their actual difficulty to play, because I don't think you would actually find somebody necessarily that was qualified to make that statement about every single one of these decks.
I mean, honestly, man, I've played a lot of these decks. I'm not going to say I've played all of them, but I have sat down and played, I don't know, 18 decks on the list. I've probably played 14 of them, something like that. And I think I can make a pretty good assessment of how hard the decks were to play, because for a lot of them it was just like a, hey, rent this deck, play 5 games in a Moto League situation. So sure. I think like I am somewhat qualified to make that that grading, and I think he is too. Like, I'm sure Paulo has done these same things when he's testing for Modern Pro Tours and whatnot. But I don't think that's like the conclusion I'm trying to take away, and I think you're right in that it's not necessarily 100% correct. And in fact, I don't agree with these ratings necessarily. Like, personally, I would definitely change some things, but there are definitely some takeaways you can make from it. Whereas, like, the first is that having no knowledge of any of these decks, this list is based on like, if you've never played any of these decks at all, how hard would it be to pick up X deck and play it, right? That's kind of what the information shows, but it's not taking into account like your own familiarity with the list, where it's like, it says Amulet and KCI are, pretty similar in deck difficulty, the same tier, fairly similar rating, I guess. But like, if you've played 1,000 games with Amulet and you've never played with KCI, Amulet's going to be way easier to play. Amulet might be in the same tier for you as like Burn and Tron would be, because they're both easy to play, whatever, right? So I do think that your familiarity is not taken into account with this. So it's kind of like if you'd never played with any of them, it's like, this is the difficulty rating it would be, right? And then the other big takeaway we have is that people, this is perceived difficulty, right? It's not actual difficulty, but this is an accurate reflection of how people perceive the difficulty to be, right?
Yeah, actually, I want to, before you get to the point, before you get to the next point, I wanted to, one of the things that really struck me about this list is this is sort of like a survey of like game one, like the difficulty of many of these decks that are perceived as easy post board is an order of magnitude in difference. Like there's something like, can someone like just pick up Burn and be like, okay, I like all of these cards do obvious things based on the text that is written on them. There's no combo aspect to it. There's no, like it doesn't have mechanical complexity in the same way as like Amulet or KCI or something like that. But if you take that person and then post board, they now have to play through hate. Like, that's a very different level of difficulty than just being like, okay, I have to cast 7 burn spells.
Well, like, I agree it gets harder post board, but like that's not to say that it doesn't get harder post board for all of these decks, right? It's just like that's the other thing with this list you need to keep in mind is that it says burn is the easiest deck to play, and that might well be the case that like of these 18 decks, burn is the easiest deck to play, but that does not mean that burn is an easy deck to play, right? Like, this is just a relative ranking compared to the other decks in the survey, and I do believe that burn is a relatively easy deck to play when you're trying to compare it to like playing Hardened Scales or Death Shadow or KCI, like those type of decks. Like, I would definitely say it's easier to play burn than it is to play those other decks. But that is not saying that burn is an easy deck to play, because it's not. There are a lot of difficult things to go on. And you're right, game 1 burn is pretty straightforward. It's just like play creatures, attack, cast your burn spells. Yep, got it. Post board though is a whole different story where it's like it's super easy to play burn up to 85% proficiency or whatever, pre-board and post-board. Getting that last 15% requires like knowing your exact role in every matchup, the right lines to take. It's really hard, and there's very little room for error with burn because you don't get that many decisions, so you don't get that many opportunities to outplay your opponent, so you have to make every decision correct. Like, it's hard, and it's not a forgiving deck either. So you're right in that there are definitely that it's misleading that it looks like burn. This list is saying burn is easy to play, and it's not. But that's not what the list is saying. It's saying like relatively compared to these other decks, how easy is it to play? And I would agree overall. Like, having played burn and having played Affinity, I thought Affinity was much harder to play than burn, in my opinion, because Affinity is doing the same thing where it's like post board you're like going up against all this artifact hate. How do I play around it? But you also have this other thing where it's like your deck is based around the sacrifice theme with Ravager, and it's just like impossible to tell like how many things you need to sack to Ravager before the Stony Silence comes down. How big do I need to make this, Inkmoth Nexus? How many turns can I give them? How all in do you go? Like, there's a lot to it. There really is, and burn doesn't have all that complexity. So I would agree that overall it's harder to play Affinity than burn, but again, doesn't mean burn's easy.
Yes. Okay. So continue. Sorry, there was a huge pre-board bias, I think, in the way that the data is presented that made it sort of like more indicative of the respondents' inexperience with the decks than an objective ranking.
Well, there is. You're right, and the other thing that I found interesting about this was like in Polo's article at least, he ranked like community ratings and he ranked like professional player rankings, and those were like pretty different in certain decks cases. Some of them were just like similar, but some of them were pretty different, and that does make sense to me because I think there is some amount of that where it's like, average player at FNM level sees burn guy as like, oh, guy picks up the easy deck, and that is classically like the deck you would give your friend that's like never played before that wanted to come out and like hang out with you on a Friday or whatever, and you're like, oh, let's go to FNM, here I have a burn deck you can play, it's not that hard, here you'll see what I mean. And you hand them a burn deck and they kind of figure it out as they go, and like, yeah, at that level burn isn't that hard, but like I think professional players think it is harder because there are just some matchups where it's just like you really need to know the right way to play it, the correct lines to take, and that was a deck that I think pros think is a little bit harder than the average player would initially assume, I guess. And I think there are other decks that are like that. I think another interesting one was the average player thought KCI was a lot harder than the pro did, where like pro players look at KCI, and KCI is not that hard once you kind of understand what's going on, but before that it just looks impossible and completely daunting. So there's a lot of like,
well, yeah, you have to learn the 3 loops and then board in all your nature's claims.
Yeah, I mean,
got it.
That's essentially the deck, right? But it's rated as the hardest deck on this list. But like once you spent 20 minutes learning it, it's not actually that hard. I've played it at FNM where I had no idea what I was doing. Like I just picked up a deck I borrowed from somebody, and I stumbled into the loop a couple times. I was like, oh hey, I think you're just dead, and it was just like not that hard to do. You just your cards don't really have that many functions. They all just like say add mana and draw cards, and then eventually you just have this loop thing. So, I don't think the list is perfect, but what I wanted to get away, and the big point that all this came from, is that what this list is showing is perceived difficulty. It's not showing actual difficulty, but it is a very accurate representation of how the Magic community perceives the deck to be, like how hard they perceive it to be. And the Magic community, which kind of led to another point with the community. So, one kind of overarching thing we kind of noticed from this list is that people tend to prefer decks that are harder to play, but not too hard. So they want to look smart, like they play a harder to play deck, but they don't always play like KCR Amulet, but they will snap on these like this 4 through 10 range of like hard decks to play. And they prefer to play these to look smart, even though it doesn't give them percentage points to win in Magic. And that is 100% something I'm guilty of, right? Where it's like I'm well known for playing control decks, blue decks, and I love to play blue decks, and I think that I have played blue decks at times because I wanted to feel like I'm not burn guy. And I don't think I feel like that anymore, but I 100% remember thinking that to myself in the past, was like, well, I don't want to show up as burn guy, even though I do think burn would be really well positioned this weekend. All right, I'm just going to play my blue deck. I'll look smart, at least, even when I don't do that well. And, like, that's just a horrible mindset to have. And you can't win like that. Like, you're not going to win events all the time like that. And you might just be playing a deck because it looks harder, and that deck might actually be well positioned that weekend, and you might win with it. But overall, and like in the long run, it's not a recipe for success. And we got a quote from Marcio Carvalho here too. Just
this made me laugh.
You want to read it, Aaron?
I do. So, Marcio Carvalho, world class player, an all around jovial guy.
I think he has like 4 PT top 8s or something, 5, something like that.
Yeah, he's an insanely good player. His response to this whole thing was, if you care about your deck being harder than others and your goal is to win games of Magic, you are an idiot. These types, by the way, are common in the PTQ scenes, easily identifiable by being terrible and losing a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of harsh. I'm not going to lie.
It is, yes, it is worded harshly.
It definitely is.
Like
And Marcio can kind of be like that sometimes, where he says, kind of harsher things, I guess. But the point we're making here is not that we want to tear apart the I guess local PTQ player who wants to play the deck that makes him look smarter. And don't get me wrong, I have definitely been there. I have played the deck at the PTQ where I wanted to look smart, whatever. So like that's kind of me, and I also didn't win a lot when I did that. So he's like totally right in that. But the overarching point here is like the best players in the world don't think like this. Like, I think maybe 5-10 years ago they did. They think, I'm going to play the blue deck because it's harder. It gives me more room to look good and play good and whatnot. But not anymore. Like, at the PT I was just at, there's a lot of people playing mono red, and there's a lot of people playing mono white. And in fact, mono white won the event. And mono white is not a hard deck to play. There are hard lines to take, and there are hard things that come up, but overall it's just like, play guy, attack, right? Like, I would not say that's a super hard deck to play. And in fact, Polo did like a rating on standard decks, and it came out as the easiest to play. But point of the matter, that again doesn't mean it's hard to play. See the burn argument we made 10 minutes ago. But the point is, the best players in the world aren't scared of playing the simple decks anymore. They do it, and they play the deck that they think is going to help them win Magic games. That's just what they do now, and they work really hard to figure out what the best position deck is to give them the best chance of winning. And if it's burn, they're going to play it. And if it's mono white, they're going to play it. And if it's KCI, they're going to play it. And that's just what they do nowadays. So you playing a deck that is actively worse because you feel like you need to stick to looking smart, but you're going to make it harder on yourself the entire tournament, is actively putting yourself at a disadvantage against these other players that are going to be playing decks that are better positioned and easier to play. Like, they just have an advantage on every single level. Like, their deck is good against your deck, and it's easier to play than your deck. So they're going to make less mistakes with it, and they're naturally advantaged to begin with. So it's like even less room for them to make a mistake, right? Or to lose the game. So the point here is like, just don't put yourself at a disadvantage. Play something that's going to be easy, not easy, like an easy deck to play, but easy for you to play, right? Where you're not going to make a lot of mistakes, where you're going to be able to take optimal lines, where you're going to be able to learn, over time. And the other thing I wanted to say, because I think this ties into people's deck choice, and one of the points I strongly took from it was, it doesn't matter how difficult or hard a deck is to play, is you have to enjoy playing it. Otherwise, you're not going to play it, and you're not going to get better, and it's not going to become easier over time for you personally. So, pick a deck that you enjoy playing, that you will make easier on yourself, and play those decks.
My takeaway from this whole thing is not playing a deck that you could do well with because it is less mechanically complicated is like that's scrubthink. Like that is not a way that you win games. And if that's your goal, then don't think like a scrub, because scrubs don't win games. Like at a competitive level, like that's just not make the best choice. Don't worry about what other people think. And more importantly, like, don't be a jerk. Like it's a good general rule, but it's a really good specific rule. Like, this drives me up a wall. And I mean, hey, look, I've taken plenty of these beats, right? Like, I played 8-rack exclusively for years. And, it was the old, Lantern deck. Like, before people hated Lantern, they hated 8-rack. Like, I got a ton of static for playing that deck. And, like, I don't care, because I don't care what people think. But I could certainly see some, like, other people being put off of a deck that they enjoy and maybe do, like, that they enjoy and do well with, because, people are, like, giving them a hard time or belittling their accomplishments when they do well with it. And that is not cool. Like, it should go without saying, but it just stop. Like, don't worry about what other people are doing. Worry about what you're doing. And if somebody does well with a deck, either congratulate them or don't say anything. And everybody will be happy. You won't look like a jerk, and the other person will feel good and continue to do well. So,
well, and dude, I totally agree with you on that. And I got a cop to this too, because I think there was a point in my Magic career where I would, like, talk down on Burn Guy, right? Or be like, oh, like, I did good with my deck, and, Burn Guy beat me again. It's like, God, you didn't even have to make hard decisions, right? And that, I think at the time when I would say those things, I did feel that way, but the truth of the matter is I still lost to Burn Guy, and, Burn Guy put in the time, learned his deck, and made the right plays against me, and he beat me because he or she, doesn't matter, I don't, whatever. But that person beat me because they learned their deck and they outplayed me. That's what happened, right? And, I used to talk down on it, but then, one quick solution to this is just, hey, how about you pick up Burn? Like, if you're losing to it and you think it's really easy to play, why don't you pick it up and see if it's really that easy, right? So I did. I, played Burn again, and the truth of the matter is Burn isn't that easy to play. Like, there are times where it can be easy. There are times where you draw, 2 lands and 6 lightning bolts and a swift spear or whatever, a goblin.
Sure.
Like, yeah, obviously, like, you have a nut draw, but, like, every deck has that, right? So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, and if your deck doesn't have that, you shouldn't be playing.
Well, some nut draws are just casting Cryptic Command on 4. I'm just going to leave it at that. But,
sure.
The point here is just, like, yeah, there the times where you don't have that, where you're, like, on a mulligan with Burn, you have, like, 3 spells and 3 lands, and you're like, okay, how are we going to win this one? Like, there are good Burn players that figure it out, and they win those games, right? they play to their outs and they make the right play every turn to give themselves every chance to win that game. And it's like, it's not easy. And, I learned that after I picked it back up again. It was just like, well, wow, okay, maybe I did talk bad about this before, and maybe there are games with it where it is easier than games I play, but maybe they're just smart for giving themselves those free wins that they get sometimes, and then figuring out, using a lot of brain power in the games where it's not so easy, and you really need to get every percentage point you can to try and get that extra win, right? So, there's a lot to it, but I would say I totally agree with you now. Like, at this point in my life, looking back on it, it's just like, it was dumb to ever say anything negative about that, because in truth, it was just jealousy, right? It's just like me being jealous that I wasn't winning, and that they made a smarter decision than me, and they did win, right? So, I would not say that now, but like looking back, it was a mistake I made, and I'm happy to say I did learn from it, and I think that's the point we can all take from this is that, you don't denigrate somebody for a deck choice. Don't do that, because what it shows is just jealousy on your part and just inadequacy on your end. So just, focus on your deck and do well with, what you got, and just enjoy the time you get to play Magic.
There you go. Let's see what else. I think that's like, oh wait, hold on. We had some, we had some requests.
Oh,
some quick hits.
What do we got?
From Twitter. Let's see. Oh, Brian. What's the easiest deck to play in Modern so I can play it and win all the games? Answer, Burn. Not true.
I would actually, my personal rating on that, just for the record, I think that Valakut is the easiest deck to play of the decks I have played. That's my personal opinion. That's not saying that Valakut is easy, but I do think that Valakut is the easiest of the decks to play, in my opinion.
I guess like once you get it, because it's what I will say about it is it's especially game one, it's like I have a plan, I need to execute the plan. If the plan is good enough, then I win, and if the plan isn't good enough, then I lose. Like there's not a lot of like ability to deviate from the plan in game one, but like it's a combo deck, and combo decks are like that.
Well, it's just so straight. Like all of your cards kind of do the same thing with it. It's just like put extra lands into play. Like there are tricks you need to learn, and there's definitely stuff that comes up with it, but for the most part, like your cards are very unmodal. Like even Burn, like Lightning Bolt has 2 modes, right? Like you can do 3 to the face, or you can do 3 to a creature, right?
Or Planeswalker has 3 modes.
Right? But a lot of Valakut's cards don't do that. A lot of them are just put land into play. Search deck for land, put it into play. So, in my opinion, it's an easier deck to play. Like, there are definitely hard like deciding what to do with, Valakut triggers can be harder, and like how you approach games. And I'm not saying the deck is easy to play, but just in my opinion, it's the easiest of this list.
It's whatever it is. It's definitely not Burn. Well, I will tell you. I'll give you that one for free.
All right. What other questions we got?
Please talk about the nutritional viability of a diet consisting predominantly of old common cards that you can't get rid of. I've been eating old commons for at least 2 meals a day for the past month, and I feel awful. The secret is you have to eat rares.
Yeah, I mean, rares are gonna...
All the nutrition is concentrated in the rare and mythic rare slots.
Yeah, I would say mostly mythics. Like, if you can, try to focus on eating mostly mythics and only dabble in commons when, as like a dessert.
It's flavor. Yeah, it's just really you need to add. So, sorry, Autumn, stop eating commons. Pet decks and why we play them. #rug, #Delver for life. Man, a lot of it is just, some of it's good habits, a lot of it is bad habits. I mean, that's really like, and comfort, right? We play things that we enjoy, and we play things that we've played for a long time that we enjoy because it is comfortable and we have good memories associated with it, because we tend as people to remember good things and forget bad things. And that is the way that memory is designed. See also the movie Strange Days, which if you have not seen it, has some very good messages about the nature of memory. It's a little bit dated because it takes place on New Year's Eve 1999. But some of it is timeless, and exceptional performance from Angela Bassett. So, Strange Days. Look it up. It's a good movie. Talk to us about how much more often cards in new sets impact the modern format. Remember when we only got like 1 or 2 new cards that were modern playable per block? Also talk to us about how people don't use surgical extraction correctly. Oh, baby. I feel like we touched on newer, like more recent sets.
Well, I think they're asking for why, and I can give a why now.
Okay.
So
great.
I think Wizards learned over time, it took them a while, but I think they finally got it, that Modern's super popular. And they kind of had this they had this theory that, like, oh my god, Modern's popular, we can't have it be popular because we're never going to be able to sell cards because Modern's like not rotating cards. Well, the thing is that Modern players want new cards. We want new cards that we can play with in our Modern decks. We just like the Modern format, right? It's not like you just never want to change cards. It's just that I don't want to have to, like, I don't want my deck to rotate out and have to buy a completely new deck and never get to play with the cards I like. But I still want new toys for the deck that I love, right? So they kind of figured out, it was like, oh, okay, so we can give people new toys and they'll be happy to play with them and buy these new cards. They just don't want to lose their decks. So they kind of were like, okay, well, how do we do that? And then that's, I think what we're seeing is that they're printing cards like Damping Sphere, like Night of Autumn, like Arclight Phoenix that, you know, make new archetypes with cards people already have and archetypes people already wanted to play, I guess. Like the Arclight Phoenix deck is a new deck, but like it's doing a lot of what other decks already did. It was just kind of just the evolution of a couple decks, right? And, you know, kind of same thing, like you see Supreme Phantom come out and, you know, making spirits good and, you know, Unclaimed Territory for humans, like that type of thing where they're giving these decks that kind of existed tools to make them more fun and more viable and keep Modern growing and evolving without, you know, completely invalidating decks necessarily. And they're doing that on purpose, you know, to keep standard cards selling to Modern players. And I think it's just a good business practice. Everybody wins that way, right? Where it's like, it doesn't cost you that much as a Modern player to like, oh, you know, my deck, now I get to play Night of Autumn. I got an upgrade in my sideboard. I'm going to go drop $5 and upgrade my sideboard. Like, not a big deal to you, but like it's a big deal that, you know, the standard players have these cards that they open that they get to kind of get some of their investment back on, and you know, people have new toys to play with. Like some people actually want that, and like I know I feel like that, where it's like I love my Jeskai deck. I would love it if Jeskai got another upgrade. I'm waiting for it to come out. Wizards, you can print me an upgrade anytime you want. Just saying, just throwing it out there. And yeah, and it just everybody wins that way. So I think they hired this new play design team, and I think they kind of realized that, and they've been, you know, kind of putting more modern focused cards into sets.
Yep. Let's see. Oh, the surgical extraction thing. This killed me. Over the Christmas holiday, I was playing that Grixis deck, as a matter of fact. And post board, somebody brought in multiple surgical extractions against me, including such wonderful targets as Fatal Push, of which there are only 2 in the deck. I don't remember what the other one was, but it was ridiculous. Like, at its core, this Grixis deck is a fair deck. Emma said this in one of her articles. People say it all the time, but people don't listen. Stop bringing surgical extraction in against fair decks. It is a bad idea. That card could be literally anything else, and it would be better than surgical extraction. Please stop.
Okay, so please. I would actually argue with you on this Grixis thing. And I've had this experience in the past where I brought in surgical against Grixis. And I think it's okay, but I would tell you that if you're going to bring in surgical, you need to know why you're bringing in surgical and what you're trying to do with it. And you need to assess if that is actually a good play. Because there are a lot of times where it's not. You're like, okay, I want to counter the Snapcaster Flashback. You're like, well, I'm trading a card for half of their card. Is that good? And the answer is no. You're getting like 1 for a half. Like 2 for 1, kind of, right? So that's not good, right? But With Grixis in particular, they really rely on these Snapcaster loops where they like play Snapcaster, block with it, get it back with Kolaghan's command, cast Snapcaster again, block with it. They targeted Kolaghan's command. After they block, get it back with Kolaghan's command again. And then they just like go through these big loops with the card where it just is like a never-ending they're casting Snapcaster every turn situation. And in that spot, Surgical is good because the spot where Surgical is good is where you're stopping something someone's doing like every turn where like a counterspell wouldn't stop it. If you know what I mean. Like the classic example for me is like the best Surgical extraction target in Magic I can think of ever as a whole is Life from the Loam in the Lands deck and Legacy. It's like if you Surgical this card where literally their entire game plan is dredge this card every turn, cast it. Dredge it again, cast it. Dredge it again, cast it. And you can't counterspell it because they just dredge it again and cast it. It never goes away. But if you Surgical it, it goes away, and now they don't have this engine anymore. So like Surgicaling to like shut down engines is good. So like if you can figure out a way to shut down an engine with the card, like a process that's repeating, it is good. So like, good Surgical targets are, KCI. Like if you can counter the first KCI and then Surgical it, now you shut down an entire deck's engine. Or like, Snapcaster and the Grixis control thing where they're like casting a Snapcaster every turn. You're shutting down an engine, right? And I would argue that Surgicaling a Tron land or a Valakut is shutting down an engine. It's kind of that thing, but you want to be stopping engines, not cards.
Right. All right, so your point is well taken about Snapcasters. So only bringing it in against loops, only bringing it in against decks that we talked about this last time actually. If the name of the thing is in the deck name, then that is a valid Surgical target. Let's see. What cards, marginal shards / wedges need to become modern playable? Esper, Sultai, Abzan, etc. I have I can speak to Sultai directly because I clearly just have a thing for that wedge, and it really needs a bump. It either needs a better 2-drop, I think, because Snapcaster, Tarmogoyf, Grimflayer, they are all powerful cards, but when you put them together, they're kind of dorky. They don't work together in a really consistent way. And if you're just playing rock splash blue for Snapcaster, that's worse than just playing rock. So there needs to be more, and that puzzle piece that sort of makes those things play together doesn't exist yet, and I do not know what it is, because playing BGX decks with cantrips just feels awful, because the whole thing with black green or Jund is that your control happens on the board and in your opponent's hand, right? So you control the spells that they can cast, and then you present board threats and eliminate board threats on the other side of the table. Cantrips do not do any of those things, and they don't advance your game plan at all. You're not building this sort of stacked control hand in order to do whatever. So I don't know what the thing is. I don't know if it's a creature. I don't know if it's a spell, but it's...
I can think of a couple of things for Sultai. One, I think Tarmogoyf is just not very good anymore, and Snapcaster Tarmogoyf decks have always conflicted in that they're fighting over the same resource and they don't play well together. So maybe a better 2-drop, if they just printed green 2-mana 5/6. If that was just a card, then Sultai would be a lot better, I think. As for Esper, Esper needs a reason to not just be blue, white, or Jeskai. I think that comes down to in those decks, having more versatile removal spells is way better, because when removal spells are dead, at least Lightning Bolt does something. Against Tron, for instance, where Jeskai can burn Tron out, in some percentage of games. Esper never does that. It just has these fatal pushes that they never use. So, like, for Esper to be good, to be playable, to be better than Jeskai that has its, like, versatile spells, it needs a card like Brainstorm, where you get the better spell, but you can get rid of it when it's bad, and it just doesn't have that. And it can't play Faithless Looting because it's not red, right? So, Esper needs a card like Brainstorm. Maybe if they printed, like, you know, like blue, hybrid, black, white, instant speed, you know, Brainstorm. So it's like a 2-mana Brainstorm or something. Then, yeah, maybe you would play Esper. But, it needs a reason to also be black because blue-white has success in Modern. So it's like, you need a reason to play black in your blue-white deck, and Fatal Push... Like, I think blue-white would like Fatal Push. I think it would actually play that card. Like, it really wants, like, another 1-mana removal spell. Blue-white does. I think it would play, like, Fatal Pushes 1, 2, and 3. But, like, that's the only black card blue-white wants. So, splashing black for, like, 3 Fatal Pushes just doesn't really make that much sense. So it needs, like... You know, like a really good Orzhov card to be printed in this Ravnica set or something like that you would want to play.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I'm hoping for in Simic is that like they print some creature probably at 2 mana that is good. Like honestly, if there was even, you know what I think would be good? If there was like a creature that had Undergrowth, that had like ETB Undergrowth, like +X card types in your graveyard. Like that would be great because then it would just have them, and then you can use your Snapcaster and use up that graveyard resource, and there's still decisions that need to be made. There's still some tension there, but you're not going to end up with these weird situations when you're like, I need to like snap Fatal Push something, but I also don't want a 2/3 Tarmogoyf.
Sure. Well, so I guess just overarching for like all of these archetypes, like one thing that can get you to play them are cheap, really powerful gold cards. So like, you know, if they printed like a really like I said, like that Brainstorm, like they printed the actual card Brainstorm, but it was just blue-black for Brainstorm, instant speed, then like you'd see a lot more blue-black decks in Modern because everyone wants to play Brainstorm, right? And also like another thing I could think of is like if they printed cards that require like certain colors that are just like absurdly powerful. Like in my mind, Force of Will is a card like that. Where it's like just this card you want to play, and so many decks in Legacy play it. And like you don't see Black Green Legacy, you see Sultai Legacy. And Sultai Legacy is just literally a black green deck that's like reaching to play any blue card it can that's mostly a black green card, just so that it can pitch it to Force of Will so it can get to play Force of Will. So like, you know, if you want to see Sultai, like Force of Will would be a good reason to. But like that's not like the only thing I mean is like maybe they printed like a crazy white spell that needed you to control white permanents, but like black green really wanted that effect in Modern. Well, then you'd see him playing a lot of like green white and white black cards that's still just a black green deck that lets you have this effect it's looking for, whatever.
Yeah. Agreed.
So yeah, I guess be like for this question's purposes and for like the immediate future, like be on the lookout for cheap gold cards because those are the type of things that can really, you know, really jumpstart archetypes that didn't exist.
Yep, or Arclight Phoenixes because.
Yeah, Arclight Phoenix is a good example of a Force of Will, actually. Where it's like, it's a red card, but it's really a blue card. And blue-red, like, you know, there's always been blue-red decks in Modern, but you hadn't really seen, like, Arclight Phoenix decks, like blue-red graveyard decks, right?
Right.
It was always, like, red-black for the graveyard decks. So it's cool that, like, Arclight requires you to be in blue for it to really work, and that it's powerful, and it's this cool payoff. So that's kind of what I mean from like this Force Will effect, where it's like this effect that you kind of need to reach into a color that color wouldn't normally reach into for like a certain other effect.
Yep. Yeah. So, before we get to the Spice Rack, you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/Turn1Thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can follow us on Twitter @T1Thoughtseize, and Zach is @A22EN. You can watch a stream at twitch.tv/T1Thoughtseize, sponsored by our friends at Card Hoarder.
Also, you can watch me stream at A22ENMTG.
Yes. Yep, I was going to say. You can see our YouTube videos at youtube.com/turn1thoughtseize, all spelled out. You can read my columns at blog.cardkingdom.com. You can become a member of the Thoughtseize Cabal at www.patreon.com/turn1thoughtseize, all spelled out. And you can see all of our content on turn1thoughtseize.com. The Spice Rack Card of the Year edition. Go.
Well, for me, this is going to come as a shock to many players because I know that you guys...
0% of the people that hear this are going to be surprised.
Dude, there has to be like one person that's surprised.
I don't believe you.
Okay, my card of the year is going to be the one, the only, Teferi Hero of Dominaria. And I know what you're saying, Zach. You really went out of your comfort zone on this one.
Yeah.
You picked one that we didn't see coming, right? But no. Yeah, for me, this is just the most impactful card printed this year. I played it at the Pro Tour. I played it at every Magic event I could play it at. I played it in Legacy. I played it in Modern. I tried to play it in Pauper. They made me take it out of my Pauper deck.
Sure.
I argued with them stringently. They still would not let me do it. I ended up not registering it, but being upset about it. Yeah, played it in Standard everywhere. I played it anywhere I could. I have not played Vintage since it came out, but I would play it in Vintage. I stand by that. I will play this card in Vintage before too long.
Man, I tried playing Vintage. That format has a lot of unfun games in it.
Yeah, that format's really degen. There's just some crazy stuff happening, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong. Yeah, so that is a thing, but, whatever. So, yeah. Teferi Hero Dominaria. Card is absolutely bonkers. So people have played with it so much now, they just understand it, but just the untapping 2 lands just ended up being so much better than it looked. And I think, if we go back and just, look in time at this card, we did a spoiler show on it, and I do believe at the time I said that it was going to be a good card. It looked like it had potential, but, I play a lot of blue cards, and I didn't even think it was going to be close to as good as it was. I just thought it would be okay. And, man, well, I thought it was going to be pretty good, but, I think right away I said that it and Karn could be played in Modern, but, I did not think it was going to be as good as it was. I don't think anybody did, and it just was leaps and bounds better than it looked.
Yes. So my card of the year so far, there's only a couple days left in the year. I went back and forth. Originally it was Discovery Dispersal, and then it was some other stuff, and then I landed on Goblin Banneret. And the reason that I picked Goblin Banneret is because it's amazing in Standard. It's amazing in Modern. It's probably Legacy playable, but I don't know that Legacy Goblins necessarily wants it because I don't know enough about the archetype.
Legacy Goblins does not want that card, for the record.
But it is a card that I, in addition to playing it, I recognized its implications, and it made me feel very smart. Because I was like, this card is the only 1-drop that they printed with Mentor. That means something. And it does mean something. It means that card rules. So, Goblin Banneret was a nice thing for me where I was like, I am pretty good at this game. I can evaluate cards.
That's fair.
And it's also a lot of fun. It's a really good card. It's really fun. It just really punches you in the face. 3 damage, and then you can just keep pumping it. So if it manages to survive in the mid game, you can just be like, oh, take 7. It's great. Card's great. So that as they say is that. So that's the 2018 round. Oh man, we didn't even totally. We previewed a lot of cards this year. I think we previewed 5 cards, 4 cards.
Yep.
4 or 5 cards, and hopefully more next year. So that's another thing. Not to be not to be forgotten in the midst of all this other stuff. But but that is what we have for this time and for this year. So thank you so much, everybody. Everybody who's listening. This is your first show or your 95th show. We appreciate every single person that is listening to this broadcast. Thank you so much. Thank you obviously for being here, for sticking with us. And, going into next year, we've got a ton of stuff planned. So hopefully we will be able to continue to execute our plan, which is to have a place for the best modern content out there.
Love you guys.